I'll be playing here just probably the most, and there was one other choir. Okay.
Mary, your house. There you go. Lake Street Church.
Welcome to this service of music built around the theme of hope. When we began planning this service a few months ago, it seemed that hope was needed, and it seems even more so today. I know that according to 1 Corinthians, faith, hope, and love abide, and the greatest of them is love. But I think that in today's world, hope is a very close second. I wasn't sure that we had many anthems about hope, but as I began looking, I started seeing more facets of hope. So while some of the pieces that we will sing directly name hope in the title or the text, some of the others give hope through reminders of the beauty and energy of the natural world and our interconnectedness with it and with one another. And some remind us that we can make a commitment to hope through prayer and through letting go of hate and fear. It is my hope that today's service may give you courage to walk on and to be part of making the world a more hope-filled place for all.
Good morning. I'm Jillian Westerfield. I'm the Associate Minister here, and I don't want to interrupt our Hope service, but I do have a pretty important announcement. I would call your attention to one of the inserts in your bulletin. It's the one with the text of the bylaws, and the announcement is, your presence is requested at a brief meeting of the congregation this afternoon, Sunday, May 22nd, in the sanctuary here, immediately following the service. This meeting is one that is required by our bylaws, as we will be voting at our semi-annual business meeting in June to consider a change in the bylaws. What is required is that the proposed bylaw change be introduced to a congregational meeting before the semi-annual business meeting. Please see the existing text and the proposed new text for Article 12 of the bylaws. The author of the proposal, which has been approved by the board, is Doug Schofield, and he will be here on hand to answer any questions. We will not be voting on anything on May 22nd. This is just an informational meeting. Thank you.
Our Today's first responsive reading is Hope is a Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson. Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chilliest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me.
heart. Bird in balance, so life twig brittle, breezing in the air, and still she sings, lifts her whole heart to the sun of morning, breath between fierce winds, and she lives.
Our second responsive reading is For the Children, a poem by Gary Snyder from Turtle Island. The rising hills, the slopes, the statistics lie before us. The steep climb of everything, going up, up, as we all go down. In the next country, or the one beyond that, they say are valleys, pastures. We can meet there in peace if we make it. To climb these coming crests, one word to you and your children. Stay together, learn the flowers, go light. Now is the time for kindergartners and first grade children to continue to worship in their classrooms. Elementary grades and youth may remain in the sanctuary for the rest of the music service.
Out of endings, beginnings. Out of silence, a chorus of many voices. Out of sadness, love. Out of disaster, triumph. From uncertainty to a sure foot. From an unknown to a vision. From alone to a glimpse of the infinite. Held by the love of others, from devastation to strength.
As we prepare for the offertory here in just a second, I want to call your attention to the note towards the beginning of the bulletin about the Music Reparations Fund. If you want to make a gift towards that, you can do that either online or noting it on your check. And now I welcome you to join us together to give of your time, energy, money, and attention as we welcome this music. Thank you.
Bonnie and Diane, I guess it'd be too much to ask for an encore, but that was wonderful. Thank you. I'm Bill Bridges, one of the co-moderators of the board, along with Karen Kidd, one of our very talented musicians. First of all, thank you for your patience for the next couple of minutes as we attend to what's really a formality. I like to think of the bylaws of an organization, of a church, as something like plumbing. You take it for granted most of the time. It's important, but once in a while, you need a little upgrading or modernization. And I'm joined up here today by Doug Schofield, who has put, I'd say, a year, 9 months of effort into modernizing our policy with regard to adopting policy. It sounds a little self-referential, but that's what it is. You have the inserts in your bulletin that list both the old and the new policy. These will be voted on at our semi-annual congregational meeting in June. This will give you a chance, little forewarning, to see what you'll be voting on. And, you know, between now and then, I suppose if you have questions, comments, you can address them to Karen, to myself, to Doug. He's in the directory. You can find him as well. So before I turn this over to Doug, who's the one that actually can answer your questions, I'd just like to remind everybody that in McLeish Hall, down the stairs to the right, there will be coffee this morning, juice, et cetera, which you're invited to take out to the courtyard and enjoy a little of the sunshine we have this morning. Doug?
Well, folks, it really only took us 2 months to do this, but we were ready to present this revision to the bylaws to the board in March of 2020. However, a little thing called COVID-19 got in the way. Before I take any questions, I would like to make a brief presentation that may address questions that you might have. When the board tasked the Peace and Justice Committee to draft public policy statements for the church, I became aware of Article 12, adoption of policy. The board formed a subcommittee that I chaired to draft revisions to Article 12. A major flaw in the current bylaw is that in the first part, your rendition of the current bylaw is not separated into paragraphs. There is no distinction between public policy statements and operational policy statements. The bylaw states, without description, that the congregation is to be given notice of either type of statement, and if the congregation, which technically means if one person objects to the proposed policy statement, the board is given the option of abandoning the policy statement or submitting it to the congregation as semi-annual or special meeting for congregational approval. The revision to the first part, paragraph 1, permits most operational policy statements to be subject only to review and approval by the board. In the event the board considers an operational policy statement to be of such a magnitude that it should be subject to congregational approval, we have created a hybrid category that if an operational policy statement includes a public policy statement, it must be treated as a public policy statement and be approved by the congregation. Our decision to become a sanctuary church was an operational policy statement which was submitted to the congregation for approval. That operational policy statement was replete with public policy statements as rationale for its enactment. That is the type of operational policy statement that under this revised Article 12 would continue to be subject to congregational approval. The third part or paragraph of the current bylaw states that a person familiar with tax law be appointed to provide an opinion to the board that a proposed public policy statement does not jeopardize the church's tax-exempt status. While a person can be familiar with Section 501c3 and not be competent to render opinion, the current bylaw does not specifically reference the pertinent code, Section 501c3. The suggested revision really makes no substantive change but cleans up the language. The revisions to the fourth paragraph or part were suggested by Liz Napier Martin and simplifies notice to the congregation of any approved public policy statement. The second part or second paragraph of the revised bylaw remains unchanged from the current bylaw. At this point, I would be happy to entertain any questions you might have. Go ahead.
Chuck Heisinger, is there any provision for notice to the congregation prior to a special meeting as to the existence of a public policy proposal or something like that?
Yes, I mean, some public policy statements should be submitted as a practical matter in advance of any special or congregational meeting. There's no requirement as to how much notice, but they should be distributed before so that you're not caught by surprise at a meeting seeing those policy statements for the first time. I must confess that when we enacted our public policy statements, it was our intention to have them submitted a couple months in advance, or a month in front of before the congregational meeting. Pastor Michael came up with the idea of drafting public policy statements at the November board meeting. They were tasked to the Peace and Justice Committee that's, created a subcommittee. We did all our work in December, and they were provided to the congregation in January. Unfortunately, because of some technical issues, they were supposed to go out a week or two before. That didn't happen, but as a general rule, yes, the congregation and the membership will get notice in advance of any semi-annual or congregational meeting. Any other questions? George, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Okay. As a practical matter, any public policy statement that our church would enact would not jeopardize us in terms of our nonprofit status at all. 501c3 prohibits the church from doing lobbying or supporting any individual political candidate, but we have the right to voice any position we want regarding social justice issues, and that would in no way jeopardize our tax-exempt status. We've continued to keep that language in there just as basically to assuage any concerns anyone in the congregation may have about taking any action that would jeopardize our nonprofit status, but as a practical matter, that would never happen. Anything else? Okay, wonderful. Have a great weekend and week.